I'd like to welcome you to our workshop today. It is Wednesday, April 10th, 2024, and we'll be viewing a presentation about advanced directives and advanced care planning. And I'm going to show a brief PowerPoint. My name is Shanti Vani, and I'm on the board of the Florida End-of-Life Doulas Association. So, okay, yes, and I'm a member of the Gainesville group of the Florida End-of-Life Doula Association. We're going to talk about advanced directives and advanced care planning. So advanced directives are the papers that you have to, direct people on what you want for end-of-life care and death care, and it's just all your planning. I want to share that the Florida End-of-Life Doula Association has a mission, and that is, as an association of Florida End-of-Life Doulas, we provide resources, non-medical care, advocacy, and compassionate support to the dying, their families, and friends. We collaborate to provide education, support, and resources for end-of-life doulas in Florida. So, the question is, why should we plan in advance for end of life? Well, some of us are pretty clear about why, but just a few points here. It certainly makes it easier to talk about it when you decide that you're going to do some planning and there are a lot of things to figure out. It takes pressure off of the family if you make your decisions and then let them know. That way they know what we want and they can do their best to fulfill that. So it gives peace of mind for yourself and your family and friends. And, we avoid being blindsided by unexpected things that we hadn't thought about that just come at us. Also, we may save a lot of money by pre-planning and preparing. So if you plan for the birth of a baby or a graduation or birthdays, why not plan for old age and death? Because if we live long enough, they're going to happen. All right, so obviously we all want to be healthy and happy, right? But sometimes things happen. It can be an illness, either a sudden illness or a long, drawn-out illness, some injury like a fall or, a car accident, any kind of injury, a heart attack, stroke. Sometimes a fall would result in paralysis, cancer, viruses, dementia, all kinds of things happen. And so who will I call on if I need help? Well, we have our medical team, our primary care doctor and specialists. We have perhaps a therapist or support systems, support groups, family and friends, perhaps an end-of-life doula or a grief specialist. So just for you to think about, who else might you have in your circle of support? And then, will we be prepared? What documents do we have? What documents do we have to update or come up with? What decisions have to be made? The conversation, having agreement among people in our lives, our children, our pets, who's to care for them? All kinds of accounts that we have. And, where are the keys to the trailer? The trailer's been sitting in the yard, but nobody knows where the keys are, the passwords, all of this kind of details. And will we all agree? In many families, people don't agree, and it makes it really hard. But if you express your wishes, they're obligated to fulfill those. So, it's important to make your decisions and make them known. So we have different documents. We have the healthcare surrogate. We have the living will. Do not resuscitate. Whether or not you want to be an organ donor. Planning for body disposition. Of course, that can include cremation, burial, and there are some other forms of body disposition. What about the funeral, the memorial? What's your favorite music? Who wants to work on what? And also a legacy project, which is, who am I? What have I been in this world? What am I leaving behind? Your ethical will, I have a worksheet for that. It's just asks a lot of questions about your values and what's important to you. Do you have a bucket list? Is it possible that you could create one and actually do some things that that you want to do before you die? Also, there's specific death certificate information that's needed, and it's good to know what that is so that you have it, you've left it there in the drawer. It's handy and people know how to find it. And where are the papers? Even if you have them, where are they? Has anyone looked at them in the last couple of years? So it's good to review whatever you do have in place. And then it's your things that may not be included in the will, but just who's going to get what. So it's really a balancing act. There's a lot. It can feel overwhelming, in fact, but it really helps if you plan ahead. And this is Jim McDermott. He did a really cool video called Don't Take Death Lying Down, which we're not going to watch right now, but there's another one as well, and you might want to make note of these. Jim McDermott is the TEDx talk, and this woman, Nina Guiglotto, I guess her name is, she is a funeral director who is speaking about preparing for death. And her talk was with Elevate Daytona Beach. So there are several good resources. There's probably quite a few, but I'm going to give, I think, 3 of them for documents and preparing. So the Conversation Project is a service provided by the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. And you can find their website. It's simply theconversationproject.org. Has a lot of good information. And 5 Wishes, you probably already know about 5 Wishes. Very good document. I think they ask $5 a copy now for it. And then the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization has a really good website. They call it caringinfo.org. And that has a lot of good information. Also, you can just click on your state and it gives specific rules by state. So very good. So a little bit about the healthcare surrogate. I was healthcare surrogate for my mom. I was very grateful to her that she had put her wishes in place and that I also had conversations with her so that I knew what she wanted. It's also good to have a second person on that document because the two can work together and confer with each other. And if one either can't or won't or doesn't want to make certain decisions, the backup person would be in there as a support and would step in. The people have to agree to be your surrogate. You don't put them on the papers unless they have agreed. They have to know your wishes and what specific life prolonging procedures you do or don't want. Also things like medication, chemo, radiation, artificial ventilation, artificial feeding, and hydration, and all that kind of stuff. So it's, you really have to think a lot about the different scenarios and just do your best to put down what you want and what you don't want. And the living will states your wishes. I think this photo of the doctor is pretty good there because how's the doctor going to know? You have to let the doctor know and the people know what you want. So if you're in a persistent vegetative state or an end stage condition or a terminal condition where there is really, the doctors have determined that there's no possibility of recovering, then the living will, you sign it and your doctor signs it, and that takes care of those decisions. And they have to both agree that you're done, that you're not getting better, you're not going to get better. And you can include your organ donation wishes on that as well. And then the DNR. Now, I worked for 11 years in a hospital, and I I can't tell you how many times I was put in the position as a respiratory therapist of having to perform CPR on people who just really were dying. And it was just so painful to have to do that. So some of them might have had DNR papers, but nobody knew where they were, or they were not present in the ER. So if you call an ambulance and you get brought to the ER and you're dying, they are going to resuscitate you unless there's a prominently displayed, in Florida, it's a yellow paper that says do not resuscitate. And so that's really important to have, and also to have a lot of people put it on your refrigerator, have a small copy in your wallet, make sure your hospital or your doctor has it, you know, in the files, and that everybody knows. Because if it ain't there, it don't exist. So, of course, as an end-of-life doula, I want to kind of talk a little bit about how we can help. Some people in the medical system think there's not a place for us there. And I'm hoping that that will change, because we have been trained and had experience in supporting and guiding people through end-of-life process. And that doesn't just mean active dying, it can be years ahead. Supporting and helping people to understand and prepare. Also having someone who is not in the family dynamics, but can be a voice and an advocate for the wishes of the client, where there might be disagreement or just grief and pain and confusion about it, is really important. And to also just have a calm presence. So when you're in the storm, it's really difficult, but the doula would come in and just be a little bit above the fray and able to really listen deeply with people and get a sense of how to help and guide. We are also aware of resources. I'm not saying I'm even an expert on this topic or any one topic, but if we don't know, we can help you find out. And I'm perfectly willing to say, I'm not sure about that. Let me get back to you on that. So willing to work with the family, and we work, holistically in certain practical things in the physical world, also emotional and spiritual support, and we meet you where you are. Sometimes the client and family will teach us about their traditions or wishes. So that's me. Now, in the doula work, I ended up deciding that grief was my thing. I went through 7 deaths in my family in 5 years between 2013 and 2018. And there were all kinds of deaths, and not to mention other traumas and things that I went through earlier in life. So I ended up really, really excited and grateful to be working in the grief area. So that's our presentation, and I want to thank everybody for being here. And now I'm gonna go back. So skip. Stop share. I'm gonna see, would people like to continue recording for this part, since it's just kind of going to be a Q&A with comments? I think it would be nice if we got different people's experiences. If there's something you want to share that you don't want recorded, just let me know and I'll pause the recording. So we're just going to open it up. Like I said, I'm not an expert on this topic, but I know enough to be able to kind of present some of the thoughts about it. We're just going to open it up now. Any questions or comments?
I got a question.
Sure.
This actually came up with somebody that I was talking to, and I didn't really have an answer. She has a DNR. Her husband knows about the DNR. Her daughter and her kids do not agree with it at all. What happens in the case, let's just say he passed, they're elderly. They're probably like mid to late 80s, I think. what happens if so he's the director, he's in charge of everything, but if he passes first and she ends up getting sick, can the daughter go in and say, hey, I don't agree with this, and get some kind of legal, like, she's afraid that it can be rescinded, I guess, is what she's afraid of. And I'm like, I don't think so, but I don't know.
I'm not sure if anybody knows the absolute answer to that, but to me, that is the person's legal document that they have signed. And again, probably best practice there would be to find someone to speak for, like do they have a backup healthcare surrogate? A sister, a friend, anybody, an attorney even, I don't know. Yeah, or a doula. Well, usually I guess doulas might not be the actual surrogate, but yeah, you gotta have plan B. And make sure that they might want to even talk to an attorney to make sure that of how to assure it. But if they and the healthcare team, have a really good conversation with them. Now, what some people do too is record yourself talking. Record it on your phone, on video, make a YouTube video, share it around, have it in your own voice and say, while my family may disagree with this, this is what I want, and be specific about the scenarios.
Okay.
If this, if that. Yeah, so just go the extra mile to make it as clear as possible. But I think a video of yourself with the date and time and evidence that, well, some people might claim that they weren't in their right mind or they had dementia. And in that case, for example, with my mom, when she went to change her will, and I was with her, I drove and I sat in the lawyer's office waiting room, and he took her in there privately, and he absolutely established that she knew what she was doing. And so it's nice to have an attorney or somebody to back you up. So any other answers to that anybody would like to suggest?
Yeah,
I guess
so Laura, I work in hospice, and whenever it comes to a DNR, once the DNR is in place, because it's a physician order, nobody can override it unless it's a physician. So that should be okay for your friend there.
okay, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. And by the way, my email is on my picture there. Please email me if you want to stay in touch, to get on our list and join us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it was heartbreaking. One time I was in the ER at the hospital where I worked, and there was a little old lady, looked so much like my mom, about 90, 95 pounds, wearing nothing but her Depends, there on the gurney. And there they were, busting ribs. Her husband was sitting in a chair down at the door to the ER room. And, as a respiratory therapist, I never did really get punished for stepping out of my role. So I just kept taking chances on it. So I was with the ventilation bag at the front of the bed, and the doctor was, of course, there, intubation and whatever. He was at the head of the bed, and I was right next to him. And so I went, I let somebody else do the bagging with the air, the oxygen, and I went down to the little man. Nobody was talking to him, and I asked him, I said, "Are you the husband?" And he said, "Yes." And I was like, "Do you know what she wanted?" He said, "Yeah, she didn't want extreme measures." And I said, "That's extreme measures." And he said, "Oh," and so I was just, at least somebody went there, and I happened to be the one. So then I went up to the doctor and I said, "Hey, doc, the husband just said she didn't want extreme measures." And he certainly went on, he toned it down a little, but he went on for another 10 minutes and finally called the code. So it's just so painful. Especially like I'm one who had home births, and I don't know, kind of hippie nature mama, and it's just hard when you see all that. So yeah. Who else? Any of the other slides that you want to comment on or?
I
I-
put in the chat that the 5 Wishes Advance Directive is in fact a legal document. In some states, it is in Florida. So you can use that.
And I just
Yeah.
said in the chat, do you have to get them notarized or just you signing them is enough? Like your advanced directives?
I think, two witnesses who are not your healthcare surrogate, I think, and it could be a nurse or somebody in the waiting room. I mean, just two witnesses. But I prefer to get things notarized if possible, because that's just one step more valid.
Yeah.
The notary has stated that you are who you are and the licenses numbers there and everything. Yeah.
Okay.
I just had a question for the copies of the DNRs. Do they need to be original signatures? Do they all need to be originals?
No, can be copied, but it has to be on yellow paper. And we use a sort of a dark yellow, but I think it can be a lighter yellow. But in Florida, anyway, it has to be on yellow. So when you're copying, copy out to yellow. But yeah, it can be a Xerox copy.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yes, Susan, you're muted.
As someone who's way less aware of all of this than all of you, if someone in our congregation is facing end-of-life issues and the family lets us know that they're feeling a little hopeless or a little helpless or they need help, how does a death doula come into the family? Is it through the doctor? How does this all happen? How does a death doula make the connection to the family that's needing them?
Right. Well, so we're each trained in whichever school we're trained in. And, that's one reason we do these talks, is to get the word out that we exist. And we're all private pay because insurance doesn't yet cover it. I hope we'll see a day when it does, because it actually saves the insurance companies money in various ways. But so it's private, it's just connect, like call doula. If they aren't available, they might know someone who is. We'll consult with the family. So we do an intake and ask questions. What are the needs? Who's taking care? Who's doing what? What papers do you have? We each do our own assessment or intake in our own way. But a lot of times a half-hour conversation tells you everything you need to know about about a family, and then they can say, when you say what you do, they can say what they need, and you just figure it out and go from there. So does that answer your question? You just got to call a doula.
Let me do a follow-up. Are there doctors in Gainesville who are connected with some of the doulas in Gainesville who will say, you know what, you might want to call this person for help, or has that bridge not been crossed yet?
I wish I gave my card to my doctor. Anybody else? You know what I mean? One thing, I think getting the word out there, leaving your cards places, inviting, I like word of mouth, but I don't know of any yet. I mean, even the cancer doctors at Shands know about me, pediatric cancer doctors, because I've reached out and made contact with them, but I must say I don't get many calls from there. It's a slow process to get connected. Nina.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
is there any thought from
You're muted again for some reason. I don't know why.
any thought from this group about creating a list is the wrong word, but a resources list for people who are willing to be doulas? Like, so if someone could contact Field and there would be a list of people who are willing to serve in Gainesville.
Yeah, so what Field is doing now is we are in the process of creating a directory for our website. And so our membership will pay an annual dues to be listed on our website, and it will have your contact information, your picture, and also a link to your website if you have one. And so I'm not sure, I'm not involved in the directory part of that, but it hopefully will be coming soon. We've been working on this for a while. And so it'll be great once it's up and running, because you can just click on your, I don't know if it'll be your county or your city or what, but your area, and find people. And I'm working on a list of resources just for my own awareness, and Who else was waiting to speak? Was someone? Tracy, were you on to speak? Oh, okay. So a lot of it is defining what we do, what our passion is, what we're offering. I created a brochure. I created my website, which you can look at, shantivani.com. And it tells a lot about my story. It has testimonials from people who have been in my courses, my classes. I teach online, I teach in person. I'm getting ready to do a grief group for men. And I don't know when or how many or who, but I'm just putting the word out there to men that I will be doing a grief group for men, because usually they don't come. And it's a different need and different audience or group. So, who else? Anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak or ask or say? Liz.
Okay, you just mentioned about a grief group for men. Is this is for like counseling for men who are experiencing grief? Is that correct?
Well, myself, grief, it's my grief group, and I am not a counselor, so I have to be careful how I describe it, because counselor is a mental health counselor who's gone through school for that. I have gone through two grief certifications. And so I'm a grief, well, I call myself as a transforming grief specialist. So the term is specialist. And I have been doing groups for the past, I guess, 3 years now. And so what I'm trying to do, my first men's group, I'm trying to get it in person. What I do is I give a few classes or just support groups ahead of time, and then we get ready for an actual class, which is for different lessons. And I usually do them bi-weekly to give people plenty of time in between to process and do the homework. But homework is really just kind of think about what we talked about and do some thinking, write some things if you want. It's not like heavy duty. I have a man I was just talking with this morning who's interested, and he lives in Ocala. So yeah. Do you have someone in mind, or are you?
Yeah, but he lives in Connecticut.
Well, I do Zoom too. Yeah. So it could be Zoom, because even Ocala's, half hour away. And so, yeah, get in touch and yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Diane.
Yeah, I just want to say, Shanti, I think that's very commendable, because I volunteer and help in a grief center in Ellington that's associated with Tidewell. And true, the men just, if they come, they're the one and only, or there's only two of them. And, I think they just feel so out of place in being able to share and participate. So I think having one just for men, I wish you the best of luck, because I think there's a real need for that.
Yeah, and I'm happy if there's 4 or 5. I don't need, 12 to 15 people. Like 4 or 5 is perfect for me.
Yeah,
So-
no. And you watch women share as they process through their grief, and it really helps to have other people to talk to. That's why I think groups kind of have their place. Individual counseling does, but I think groups definitely have their place too.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been fortunate, talking about doctors, but counselors in our area have referred people to me. In one case, it's a couple that they worked with for so many years, and then the wife died, and then the counselor just says, go to Shanti, because it's time for grief work, and they're no longer a couple, and, or some that I don't even know have referred people to me, and it's been really good. One friend who tragically lost her only adult child, and she came to me right away, and we worked really hard for the first year, and we're still doing stuff together, and it's just, it makes a difference, so being that dependable, committed, ethical person that people can trust and turn to. I mean, oh gosh, I had a call the other day from somebody I worked with a year and a half ago in Chicago. We were on Zoom and she called me and said, gee, I'm still like struggling with this. And we talked for an hour, and by the time we were done on Zoom, she just looked a lot better, so it's it's work, and we do charge. Sometimes if someone doesn't have money, I don't charge, but do sliding scale. But to me, it's so important that the whole idea is that we're trying to end suffering in the world and help people in the toughest things, right? Things about death and loss and your whole world changed. Those are kind of reminds me of the Statue of Liberty. You know what I mean? Bring me your hurting people and let me lend a hand, let me listen, let me walk side by side. If they don't want eye contact, just walk side by side. Let them know you're there. So it's really sacred work. It's a joy. And I tell you, whoever thought that working with grief would make me so glad, but it really does. So. Yeah. We still have like 15 minutes. If people have more, if not, we can turn it off and watch that video together. Yeah.
I don't
All
know
right.
if this is the
Yeah. Go ahead.
if this is the right place to do this, but I have sat down with people to go through their advanced directives and had mixed success. So I'm interested if people have done that, what they found really works, and that kind of thing. So if there are people who've worked with it a lot, for my class, I had to do 5. I had to talk to 5 people, and yeah, I found it rather easy to get people who would sit down with me, and rather difficult for people to get beyond that initial conversation.
Anyone here who's had experience with it would like to help Nina with that?
Not so much. Okay. Well, open question then.
Well, yeah, I can say I had a woman come to me, and she really only came for one session for an hour. We just kind of talked it through, a lot of kind of what I was just sharing with you in the PowerPoint, but I saw her months later, and she mentioned how helpful that had been, just to help sort some things out. Sometimes we don't even get a final product, but we still get insights or awareness, or the more of an ability to talk with our people, with our kids or family. So, anybody else? Yes.
I was just going to say, for an answer to that, it really varies. I mean, I've been with people that, they're trying to describe if this, then this, if I'm in this situation, then do this kind of stuff. And, it seems almost nearly impossible to try and define those situations. So part of the challenge is kind of coming up with a document without knowing what the situation is going to be. And there is a little difficulty in doing that. And the other thing I've seen people talk about is that sometimes it's not necessarily a family member that you want as your health advocate, because I only caught the tail end of the question about what happens when you have a directive and your spouses or children don't want that. It's kind of like, well, you need to pick a different health advocate was the answer. And not always is a family member the best one. So I don't know if that helps at all, but sometimes, filling out these sort of wishes and stuff is like, well, what are my family going to think? And so if they're not on the same page, it can be a little bit challenging, but most people see the necessity of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you feel like hesitant or blocked, because of some person's emotions around it, then you just got to plow through and make the, come to those decisions and sit and lay it down and present it, yeah, it's tricky and it's going to be different in every case. I think I would like to sometimes see a list of all the possible whatever what might happen, all those scenarios. I think it'd be really interesting to have a workshop, maybe a 2-hour workshop or something on scenarios, and just play it through. And maybe even if we had a good sized group, we could do breakout rooms in pairs or threes, to go over role playing it, even like having the conversation. I think that'd be might be a good follow-up to this.
I love that idea.
Yeah, Laura.
Yeah, so I haven't really dove into doing this, but just from the training program I was in, I am curious to, when your question being asked about these documents being legal, I kind of got on the impression that they weren't, that a doctor could even go against and decide not to follow through with someone's end of life wishes. Like if they felt they were, that they still had the final say so.
I don't think so. I don't think that's the way it's intended ever. And
no,
so
I understand. I was just,
well, if a doctor
curious,
had the nerve to do that, you sure need a good advocate.
yeah, she was this the woman who did the program I was in, she was an oncology nurse and a hospice nurse, and she said, they said to go to the extreme that you'd actually, get a restraining order, dismiss your doctor, but it's like you don't really want to have to do that either. But like you were saying with regards, I was interested in, like, is that true? They can overturn?
I wouldn't think so. Have to word it really carefully and well, and be thorough, and do a video and show the video to your doctor and the nurse and nurse practitioner. I don't know, if there's any question. Yeah.
Like you say, make sure everyone has a copy of your.
And double down. And like Diane was saying, yeah, family, tricky, right? Because if there's 3 kids and one or 2 are in the position of doing that, and there's any, when things get really tough is when everybody freaks out.
Yes. Now, is there any kind of app on your phone that you can enter advanced directives? Like,
I think so. Probably that'd be something to look up. But yeah, there are. I know there are. So
okay,
Diane.
thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was at a deaf cafe and a gentleman talked about the fact that he had all his documents, but they were on a computer at home when he had this like huge allergic reaction and he said, what I do, because I don't carry those around with me all the time. And so somebody said, wait, there's a QR code that you can place them behind, and you probably have your phone and you just do the QR code and then they pop up. Now, I've not seen that in action, but I was so surprised to hear him talk about that. Because that's true, we don't run around with all our papers with us all the time.
And then you have to have a note tattooed across your forehead. QR code, check.
Yeah. Well, he was with it enough for that second to say, I have those papers, and then he was able to call them up.
I heard somebody once asked if I have a tattooed DNR across my chest, would that work? And they're like, no.
It was suggested that you keep them in your freezer. Like, so if you ever had a fire in your house or whatever, and that everyone knows, I was like, wow, it's interesting.
Yeah. Plus it's a safe, place for paper, but have them sealed nice and tight. Yeah.
When my folks went into a retirement home, and apparently this was fairly common, this was in Ohio, that if you wanted to be there and you had a DNR or a living will, that was in a particular tube of a particular color, and it was in your refrigerator. It wasn't in your freezer, but it was in your refrigerator, and no ambulance left that facility without making sure that had been taken from, and if it was empty, it was empty, but it was there in everybody's refrigerator, to which my mother said, well, what about the rest of you? And her concept was everybody should have it rolled up in the bottom of their purse. Doesn't help men. But this was a small tube about the size of an EpiPen. And had all the papers in it. And she said everybody should carry one of those in their purse, which I thought was an interesting concept. phone apps are a bit easier. However, if you're not able to open your phone for somebody, that becomes a problem. So,
Right, but you can have it in your car. Most of us do drive a car. Have it in your glove box. I have my documents in my car, and a note in your wallet or on the tape to the back of your license or whatever that says, "Look here for my documents." Like, make sure, you don't think of that stuff, but I must admit I don't have it in my wallet, but I guess I better tape it to my license. Yeah. Wow, this is great. I love these kind of free-flowing conversations. Anybody else have anything that you want to add or ask or offer?
I was gonna say, the conversation about the doctor going kind of ape crazy and not listening. If that happens, you do have the right to fire your doctors. The best
Okay.
mentality to have is that these people work for you.
That's
They
right.
don't rule the situation. We learn this in the birth world and everything, and having that point of view, I have not seen many cases where a person would have to do a restraining order, on a doctor because of something that happened. Most of the time, it's just they work for you. It's the same thing going to ENT, getting your eyes checked, everything else. They're doing a service for you. It's totally okay if you're not jiving with them and you're a surrogate to really kind of have that conversation depending on where your parents or whoever you're surrogating for, and how they feel about quality of care depending on where they are and their communication. But they work for you. It's okay to say, let's get a second opinion, or however nicely you want to word that.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And you have to remember, doctors are trained. Unfortunately, they're not yet trained for all aspects. They're trained to do everything they can to keep the physical body alive. They're really not trained so much with the emotional and spiritual side. And even I have a friend who's a heart transplant. She's about to be on the heart transplant list. And so I've been kind of being her doula a little bit, supporting her. And she really had to teach her doctor a thing or two about the way he was presenting thoughts to her. And he kept saying, "Oh, this is really scary. I know this is really scary, 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 scary." And she kept hearing that. And she said, "No, this is serious. But do not try to put fear into me," because she's just dealing with her own. And he said, "Thank you." He would never say that again to a patient. So you can make a difference, and you can help you. Sometimes we have to help people learn. There's also that kind of juxtaposition where in the old way, we used to think, or, when I grew up in the 50s and 60s, you think like, "Oh, it's the doctor and I'm just little me." But no, we're partners in your health, and so not to just, "Oh, whatever the doctor says," like we got to do our own thinking and our own planning. And their job is to keep you alive sometimes at all costs. And there's also money in it. And it's a big business. It's a big corporate business. So some of us are a little bit, kind of outside of that system. Having worked there for 11 years, I'm so grateful not to be in that machine anymore. It's tough. All right. Wow, this is awesome. Any last thoughts? If not, I'll go ahead and close out.